Oren Kimball from ANI 245, and welcome to this brief tutorial that goes over my turn-in expectations. Alright, so first thing, have a Maya file. There are 3 things that I want you to turn in when you turn in an assignment. Unless I specify otherwise, these are the 3 things I want. The first one is a Maya file. So here for the example, I've got this little fox ball bounce from earlier demonstration. Go ahead and just, whatever file it is that you're turning in, go ahead and save it. In this case to the desktop so it's easy to find. Last name underscore first name underscore ANI 245 underscore whatever the assignment is. In this case I'm just going to pretend that it's project 1 and save as. You can say, I prefer Maya ASCII files, but we all know that the Fox rig is temperamental and wants to be a Fox binary. That's fine if it wants, or Fox binary. Maya binary file, that's fine. MB or MA files are fine. Alright, so this is one of the files I want to submit. I'm pushing it off to the left for safekeeping. The next thing I want is an image sequence. Now, ideally, you've created a project folder or project directory for your Maya file. And what that entails is going to File, Project window, naming a project, using the defaults, accept. And then you would save your Maya file and the scenes file, and of course, as long as your project's been set, so right underneath it, set project, making sure you've set your project directory, it would automatically save out all your image sequences to the image folder. Now, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I just went ahead and created an empty folder for the image sequence. Alright. Now I'm going to be requesting Playblast unless I specify otherwise. Playblast will just allow me to get straight to the animation without having to fuss with the lights or the texturing or all that nonsense that I'm not necessarily going to be grading. I'm more interested in the animations themselves, so Playblast will suffice. Before we get to the Playblast, we need to make sure that everything on our screen is fitting like it should. First, looking at composition, for this ball bounce, I wouldn't want to choose an angle like straight ahead because that covers up so much of the nice S-curve motion on the tail. So probably a 3/4 angle, something that allows me to see everything. And then I got to make sure that nothing inside this image sequence is being cropped. So inside your viewport, you've got all these buttons along the top of the viewport. And right around here, there's a little tiny box with what looks like a triangle and a circle. This activates your safe action on the camera, and that's a nice dark green box. Now you might not see the dark green box if, say, your outliner's turned off and you're got the channel box on your right. You'll notice that you only see the green bars on the side. To see the rest of it, turn on outliner, toggle over your attribute editor, having these other windows open. It's going to compress, kind of shrink in your viewport, and you'll be able to see all parts of that safe action. Alright, so this guy is definitely jumping out of the safe action, so I'm going to move him down in my viewport. Maybe center his action a little bit more, zoom in on him a little bit more. There, perfect. So now he's staying nice and snug inside the safe action. I don't have to worry about any clipping issues. Alright, once I've gone ahead and set up the safe action, I'm going to start with a Playblast. There are 2 ways to access your Playblast options. One of them is inside the time slider. I can right click, go to Playblast and click the options box, or I can go to Windows, Playblast, click the options box. I'm going to go ahead and set these back to default. Time slider's fine. That means that it's going to export between frames 1 and 25 because that's what I have the time slider set to. For format, I'm going to choose image. For encoding, I'm going to go to JPEG. Originally, I wanted Targa, but I found that when I export an image sequence encoded with Targa, that we have to fuss with the unnecessary alpha channel. So just go with JPEG, it's fine. For the size, go ahead and make it full size, unless you run into file size issues, in which case you could go ahead and shrink that if you feel so inclined. Save to file, and I'm going to go ahead and name it. Before I name it, I'm going to go ahead and tell it where I want it to go. I want it to go into image sequence. Typically, you don't have to do that if you've set your project, but because I didn't, I have to tell it what folder I want those images to go into. So I'm going to go to file name, and I'm going to name it underscore last name underscore first name underscore ANI 245 underscore whatever this is, which in this case project 1. Type of files, you can go ahead and go to Targa at this point. Press save and Playblast. Now once it's done with the Playblast, you'll notice this little jumping icon on the right. That was F-check turning on. If I minimize Maya, you'll see that Maya's image player, the F-check, turns on automatically. Now by default on the Mac, it has it preset to play every frame, that's why it's going crazy. But I'm asking it to play at the 24 frames per second rate, and it looks good. It's just a nice way of checking your file before you encode it. So now I've got these image sequences right here. I'm going to go ahead and drag this folder out, rename it Kimball underscore, or last name underscore first name underscore ANI 245 underscore project 1. And that's the other thing you'll be submitting. So now you got 2 down, 1 to go. Now, we ran into some issues trying to export as an MOV on the campus computers because the campus computers are all PC, and it turns out that Mac is no longer supporting MOV for Windows. So it's an Apple software package. They will continue making it an Apple software package, but it is not being produced anymore for Windows. And the problem with that is, while you can still access older versions of QuickTime, not having up-to-date versions leaves it open for security risks. So instead, we don't need to necessarily have QuickTime on the PCs in order to create MOVs. So instead, we're going to go with Adobe Media Encoder, and that's this icon right down here on my Mac. On the PCs, you can go ahead and type in encoder, and it should pop up under the Adobe suite. So Media Encoder is basically the same thing as Render Queue in After Effects or Render Queue in Premiere. All it is an export engine, and it's very simple. Under the Render Queue window, there's a little plus sign. Click on that, go to your desktop, click on the image sequence folder. Make sure it's alphabetized by name, so the first frame you select is 001. JPEG, file sequence, cool, press open. And there it is. There's the sequence put together as a film strip. So the first box, you'll notice there's 3 blue links, more or less, or options down here. Click on the little down arrow and you can click on QuickTime. The second one over asks you kind of what sort of options in that QuickTime you want to export as. HD 720p, 24 frames per second with an H.264 encoder is perfect. So go ahead and click that. The third one has to do with output settings and how you save it. So I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to name it last name underscore first name underscore ANI 245 underscore project 1. I'm naming all of these the same, and because they're all different, one's a my file, one's a directory, and one is an MOV, it won't matter that they all have the same name. So I'm press play, and when I press play, it automatically encodes to my desktop. So I'll close out of Media Encoder, I'll right click, and now obviously you cannot open this with QuickTime if you're not working from a Mac, but from a Mac, there it goes. Nice little MOV file. And that's it. Those are the 3 things that I want you to submit. So when they're ready, go ahead and log into Desire to Learn, go under Dropbox, click on the Project 1 Dropbox or whatever Dropbox you want, go to under Submit Files, click Add a File, drag and drop your Maya file, drag and drop your MOV file, and then drag and drop your directory. But when we do that, we get an invalid file type because the browser does not like folders. So to overcome this, you can just right-click the folder and compress it. At least on a Mac it's called compressing. On PC, I believe it's send to WinZip. But when you create it, a zip file, so that's this, when I compressed it, it basically treats the folder, this whole folder, as an icon or a single application. So I can grab this, drag it in, and suddenly the Dropbox likes it. Press Add, and press Submit. Make sure that you don't close out of your browser until you see this next screen. The file submission successful with a confirmation email sent. If you don't see a little red circle appear up here on the message alerts, make sure you screen grab this page. But eventually, when you walk away from that page, yeah, the little pager button up here should say, hey, you just got an email saying you submitted something. So hold on to that email until the end of class period. or I mean the end of the semester, because it's evidence that you submitted a file if anything goes wrong. If Desire to Learn decides to glitch out and not submit your files, you have that email to fall back on to prove that you did. So if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to send me an email, or you can ask me in class. Thank you so much, and see you in class.